Good afternoon, everyone. I hope you're feeling as groovy as we are. Thanks to that music from events director Paul Kitty. Appreciate that. I am Luke Tannen, Executive Director of Chicago Innovation, and I want to welcome you all to today's virtual event, From Startup to Scale Up. Chicago Innovation is now in its 20th year, and I'm here with the person who started it all 20 years ago, Tom Kazmarski.
Hey, Luke. Hey, everybody. How you doing today? It's great that you joined us because today's topic is all about the journey of an entrepreneur. And those of you who are entrepreneurs know without question that it can be a lonely journey, yet at the same time invigorating. It can be a risky journey and hopefully rewarding. And it can also be a journey that really takes us down a variety of different paths and challenges and opportunities.
That is certainly right, Tom. And the journey from startup all the way through scale up is one we can all learn from. Whether you're an entrepreneur embarking on starting a brand new company, or maybe you're someone who's trying to innovate within an existing one and charting a path towards growth.
Now more than ever before, innovation is at the heart and soul of organizations, both big and small. And today's speakers sure know something about starting a new business and scaling it. And that's really the topic of today, and how you navigate through those pains and those challenges to make a success.
And before we dive into this discussion, there's a few things that I want to share. So first, if you have a question for the speakers, please send it to us via the Zoom Q&A, since we will save some time at the end to answer as many audience questions as we can. And next up, I want to make sure we recognize and thank our wonderful year-round sponsors who support this event and everything else that Chicago Innovation does throughout the year. Starting with our diamond sponsors, SMS Assist, Wintrust, Accenture, and Walgreens. Gold sponsors Comcast Business and Exelon. Silver sponsor Vetter Price. Bronze sponsors Energy BBDO, Crown Castle, LK Thompson Coburn, Ramsey Innovations, and we have CEO John Morris on the panel today, Groupon, and also Aero Digital Labs, as well as our media partners Intersection, Clear Channel Outdoor, WBBM News Radio, and NBC Chicago.
And leading today's great discussion on from startups to scaling is such a close friend of Chicago Innovation, Kevin Willer. And Kevin is really an amazing guy who started as a partner when he was, now he's a partner at Chicago Ventures, the city's most active seed stage venture capital firm. But he was the founding CEO of 1871, where indeed he helped set it up as the #1 ranked private business incubator in the world, and had previously co-founded the Google office here in Chicago, and has helped it to grow to a significantly larger organization than it was back then. He's on the Chicago Innovation Board, and we're so thrilled he's here. Please welcome Kevin Willer.
Hi, Tom.
Okay. Hi,
good to
Kevin.
see you. Hi, everyone. Thanks for having me today. So I'm thrilled to be moderating this Rockstar panel, and I'm going to just take it away here with introducing our incredible panelists that are going to talk to us today about going from startup to scale up. We're really lucky to have these four here, and I'm going to introduce them all, and turn on your video, or whenever you feel comfortable doing that. First and foremost, we have Stephen Galanis, an old friend, founder and CEO of Cameo. Launched 5 years ago. Cameo is valued at over $1 billion. Time Magazine's one of Time Magazine's 50 most genius companies, and one of Fast Company's world's 50 most innovative companies. I remember Stephen hanging out in 1871 in the early days of Cameo, and it's just been incredible to see all of his success building Cameo, and I know he's just getting started. So welcome to Stephen. Second, we have Caitlin Smith, founder and CEO of Simple Mills. Caitlin won the University of Chicago New Venture Challenge Business School competition in 2013. I remember being one of the judges for that finals, and we were just thrilled that Simple Mills was the winning company then, and just incredible what she's done since. Now the #1 natural baking mix and #1 natural cracker brand in the U.S. Simple Mills is in over 20,000 stores nationwide. So incredible success story. And again, I know she has a lot more to do and will be making the company even more successful ahead. Third, we have Duda Sadiq, Chief Customer Officer at Active Campaign. After starting with 15 employees in 2016, this marketing technology company has raised over $360 million in 5 years. It is now valued at over $3 billion. Welcome, Duda. I'm looking forward to hearing about your experiences there at Active Campaign. And I would say Jason Van de Boom, the founder, has built a company that sometimes is under the radar in Chicago. So excited to hear from Active Campaign today. And last and certainly not least, our fourth panelist is John Morris, founder and CEO of Ramsey Innovations, and then founder of Rise Interactive. At age 30, with only $10,000, John started Rise Interactive. When he sold Rise 16 years later, it was one of the largest independent digital agencies in the world. So a very successful entrepreneur who's at it again with Ramsey Innovations, and will bring a lot of interesting perspective to this panel. So everybody's got their cameras on. Welcome, everybody. Good to see you all out there. So before we get into the Q&A, we're going to do an audience poll. I'm told it's going to come on the screen. Here we go. All right. So the audience poll is, what's the biggest challenge that you're trying to tackle at your organization right now? Is it raising capital, finding talent, gaining customers, implementing innovation, or just getting the company started, or something else? And so we wanted to get some feedback from the audience before getting into the Q&A. So if everybody can go into the poll and put their answers in, and then I believe Paul will let us see what the results are in not too much. Oh, here we go. Look at, we're already starting to get some results here. Definitely challenges across the board, but gaining customers, of course, getting customers, getting revenue, getting people using your product, your solution is always critical, and one of the most important things. Sounds like a lot of folks are challenged with that right now. So hopefully we can talk about that a bit with our panelists here today. Awesome. All right. Well, without further ado, let's jump into it. I wanted to start off by letting each of our panelists, I give a little bit of a background on them, but I wanted to let the audience know what the companies are actually doing. So would love to have each of the panelists summarize what your business does in, a power sentence or two. But yeah, we'd love to hear a little bit about just, all the different companies we have around the panel. So why don't we start with Stephen?
Thank you, Kevin. Good to see you. At Cameo, our mission is to create the most personalized and authentic fan connections on earth. We've created a platform where over 40,000 different celebrities, athletes, actors, entertainers will make personalized video messages for you. So if you need to wish someone happy birthday, or you need to cheer someone up, or give somebody congratulations, you can go to cameo.com and get their favorite person to say whatever you want to them for a price.
Love it. Nice job. And looking forward to hearing more about the Cameo story as we go through this. Let's go to Caitlin next.
Awesome. Hi, everyone. I'm Caitlin Smith. I'm the founder and CEO of Simple Mills. So Simple Mills makes delicious, nutritious crackers, cookies, bars, baking mixes, and frostings. You can see some of them on the screen behind me here. But we only use purposeful ingredients, never anything artificial. And our products taste absolutely delicious. Our products are probably best known by our #1 product, which is our almond flour crackers.
I can totally attest to that. They are awesome, awesome products, and they taste great. So everybody check them out. All right, let's go to Duda. Let's see, hold on.
Unmuting, right?
All good. Hi, Duda.
Thank you so much. So let's start with this. Our customers have saved 38.4 million hours in the last 12 months using Active Campaign. Active Campaign helps businesses of all sizes grow their business using customer experience automation, which is essentially how do you personalize one-on-one communication between your business and your customers across all channels throughout your entire customer life cycle, from acquisition to engagement to helping them become power users and advocates?
Well done, Duda. That's exactly right. And it's such an incredible company, as we talked about. We'll hear more about ActiveCampaign as well. And John Morris, if you could share more about Ramsey.
Yeah, so Ramsey Innovations teaches CEOs and their leadership team how to use data to basically run their businesses more effectively and ultimately grow at a much faster rate.
Awesome. I love it. I love it. And John, not to put you on the spot twice, but I hit on Rise Interactive too. I mean, I hit on a little bit in the intro, but what an incredible company you built and exited and had great success with. Can you describe that quick?
Actually, absolutely. First of all, I want to let Caitlin know I'm a little bit bitter because I took second place in the New Venture Challenge with Rise Interactive, not first. And I don't know how much you won, but I only won $10,000, which was the seed money for Rise Interactive. And we scaled it to one of the largest independent digital agencies. We started off helping small to medium-sized businesses. Towards the end, I think today there are about 350 employees. When I exited, it was about 250 employees. And we helped some of the largest companies in the world execute all of their digital media, web analytics, as well as web development services.
Awesome. Awesome. Thanks, John. Yeah, we got a lot of Chicago booth here. All due respect to Tom and his relationship with Kellogg too, though. Lots of good business school students coming out of Chicago and building great companies. So great to see everybody represented here. Awesome. All right. So now we've learned a little bit about the companies and the founders here, but we want to kind of dig in a little bit deeper on what really drives them. So this is more of a general question to the panelists, and I don't want to call you out if you want to just jump in, but I'd love to hear from each of you if you have something to say about this. So the question is, was there a specific time in your life when you realized you wanted to be entrepreneurial? Or if you weren't the actual founder, maybe wanted to join an entrepreneurial endeavor, a startup company. And then follow-up question to that was, what was behind this realization, and what did your very first steps down this path look like? So I'll open up that to the panel and jump on in.
So I can go ahead. So what's funny for me is I kind of felt like I was always going to be an entrepreneur, and I just didn't know when it was going to happen. It just felt like it was almost, I don't know, I don't exactly believe in fate or destiny, but just that it was going to happen. But as far as Simple Mills, I felt really called to do that, to work on Simple Mills. So I cleaned up my diet and taken out a lot of the processed food and a lot of the sugar, and realized just what a huge difference the food that we eat has on our bodies. And once I realized that, I really couldn't sit still. Like, I had to somehow make an impact and help change what people are eating. I remember thinking, like, I could lose every dollar to my name and it'd still be worth it. It'd still be worth the effort. It'd still be worth it, kind of helping move the dial just a little bit. And so I think for me, it came down to that passion. That passion, I think, was like the ticking force that pushed me into being an entrepreneur.
Caitlin, just real quick follow-up. And I'm forgetting the timeline, but with Simple Mills, you had created that and started that before business school, but then you ended up entering it into the New Venture Challenge. Is that right?
Yeah, great memory. When I started applying to Booth, I had just started Simple Mills. So we were in like maybe, I think I was working on the recipes at that time. And by the time that I got into Booth, we were in maybe 2 stores, 3 stores. So it's not like it was a fully formed company by any means. And I still had a lot of learning to do. But what a great environment to start that learning.
That's right. That's right. No, it's great. The timing was good on that. All right, other panelists on the question I asked about your entrepreneurial journey.
You know, I actually came from a long line of entrepreneurs. My dad owned his own business. My mom owned her own business. My grandma owned her own business. My grandpa owned his own business. And, so I actually wanted to start my own business from as long as I could remember. My dad sold fasteners, nuts, bolts, and screws, and I was literally, I think, at like age 8, like in the warehouse having to count inventory at the end of the year, which is not the most glamorous job in the world, but I always aspired to start my own thing. I also loved strategy games when I was a kid. And when I think about business, I think of it as a never-ending strategy game where all of us have gray information and have to take black or white decisions with black or white outcomes.
Yeah.
And I just think that's so cool. Like you just get to see how your business is doing on a regular basis.
I love it. So I got to ask them to you is, did you feel like you had to be an entrepreneur? Couldn't you just, go and get some other job, or was it just kind of baked into your DNA?
I mean, look, I think the first business I started was I sold buttons with your pictures on it. And I would go to drugstores and you could for, I don't know, like $2, leave a picture and make buttons for you, starting in 5th grade or so. I just always, the concept of taking something that is incredibly small and turning it into something large has just been something I've always been really excited about.
I love it.
Yeah, I'll echo.
Go ahead, Steve.
I'll echo Caitlin and John. John, when I think about your story of growing up in a family with a long line of entrepreneurs, like I'm with you. My grandfather, my uncles, all entrepreneurs. So like you, I think my whole life I knew that I wanted to start something. And similar to Caitlin, it was about finding like that right idea. And Kevin, I remember one year for Chicago Ventures CEO Summit, you brought Jay from Fieldglass in, and he talked about this concept of Ikigai, which is a concept I didn't know until well after I started Cameo, but it's something that I tell young entrepreneurs all the time, is find the intersection of what do you love to do, what are you great at, what does the world need, and what can you get paid for? And I think anytime you're working on something that's outside of that, it's impossible to truly be best in the world at it, because anyone on this call can tell you, like, it's all in. Like John and Caitlin, nobody works harder. Like you guys work just as equally as hard and trying to change the world, as I do. And if you don't love what you're doing, somebody else that loves, creating nutritious food is gonna beat Caitlin's butt at innovating and all that. So I think finding that Ikigai point is so critical. I know that when I finally had the idea for Cameo 10 years into my professional career, I'd worked for other people, and, so often I was frustrated by if I always want to be someone with the ball in my hands at the end of the game, right? If we win, I like it being on me, and I also like it being on me if we lose. I don't like losing for other people. And, and for me, when the idea for Cameo finally struck, I'll never forget buddy Will Hearn, who I worked at LinkedIn with at the time, and said, Steven, if somebody else builds this business and it becomes $1 billion business and you never leave LinkedIn, you never take your shot, could you live with yourself? And for me, the answer was no. I resigned that day and I never went back. And I think, having that spark, really finding something that's at your Ikigai center point, it's critical for any young entrepreneur thinking about, or old, right? Like, I was 30 when I started Cameo. So many of the most successful entrepreneurs are doing it in 40s, 50s, 60s. So it's never too late, but, just find something you love to do.
And Steven, you grew up in the suburbs of Chicago, but you went to Duke and you were very entrepreneurial there too, right? So you had kind of history of entrepreneurial endeavors.
I did. In college, I was the first grade that had Facebook all 4 years of college. So this is back when you needed a .edu address to get on the network. And I had a bar business that I ran. So it was party promotions. And on top of that, we were selling t-shirts and DJ rental equipment. And we had a hot dog stand and a college boxes stand. And we ended up having 17,000 college students in a Facebook group. And so for me, like coming from that, and then right after graduating from Duke, going to the Chicago Board of Trade, being a clerk and getting people coffee, that was a tough come down. So I wanted to limit that and make that as short of a period as possible.
I love it. I love it. All right. And dude, I'm going to let you chime in here, on the same question. I know you're kind of newer to Acting Campaign, but you've had a lot of success at companies like Pinterest and others, and Google, of course. So can you speak a little bit about the entrepreneurial, what attracted you to entrepreneurial businesses?
My journey is a little bit different than all of yours. I immigrated to this country for studies, right, to get to school effectively, and entrepreneur was something that at that point in time wasn't something that I thought was possible for me. That was not true, but that is what I thought at that point in time. However, I went to B school at Berkeley, and it really opened my eyes into all the possibilities. And for me, what really excited me was something that, was probably true for me for the longest time. I just like to learn a lot of new things and have my hands in many, many problems. And being in an entrepreneurial company or a high growth company or places where the answer needs to be figured out just gives me joy and just helps me be very engaged. I like to be engaged at what I'm doing. And that's something I realized a little bit later in my career. And I've tried to pair myself up with high growth places. My first few attempts were very terrible because I thought they were high growth places and they weren't. And then I ended up at Google, which gave me a lot of good ideas on how to do things. And from there, I went to Pinterest, and now I'm at ActiveCampaign. Yeah.
And Duda, what attracted you to ActiveCampaign? I mean, I could guess, but what's so cool, again, I alluded to this earlier, Jason started this a long time ago, was just building a great company under the radar, didn't raise a lot of capital, and just went after it. But, has become more high profile recently with all the hiring and the capital raising and all that. So what attracted you to ActiveCampaign? How did you get connected?
So this is a very, very good story for me. I mean, I've always been fascinated with how do you bring something to lots of people? Because you can do it for a few people and everything else. But one of the things about ActiveCampaign, it has over 150,000 customers in 170 countries. I mean, literally, that's more countries than McDonald's has presence in at this point in time. So that was sort of like the original hook that we got started on. It's like, listen, this is a great scale up opportunity. And one of the other things that sort of really attracted to me is I fundamentally believe that great customer experiences lead to people doing business with you. Yes, people buy services, but at the end of the day, somebody wants to feel like they're getting value. And that's just not monetary value. There is some additional element of that value that can be delivered. And when I looked at the platform, the way it allowed entrepreneurs, small businesses, medium business, and large businesses to have that seamless balance of personalization, but doing it via a software, but also then having the right kind of touch points so they can do it in person. I thought that was like a great combination. And with the great numbers of the customers and everything else, I just felt like this was a good place to sort of, push that envelope of learning a little bit more.
I love it. And Chicago-based company, and I think you're based out west, but great that we're attracting talent like you, high-level talent from the West Coast. So
absolutely
awesome to have you part of this success story. Thank you. Okay, we're going to move on. So great answers there. Are really helpful as people think about their entrepreneurial journey, and kind of hear from folks, why they got into it in the first place. Now we want to kind of pivot a little bit into maybe giving some practical advice on scaling companies. And so, there's of course many challenges on the road from startup to scale up. Testing an idea, going all in, getting getting product market fit, building out your core team, potentially raising some capital. So can each of you share some practical advice on how you scaled your organizations, and what do business owners need to consider when kind of charting out their growth and planning to scale up? So I'll open that up to all the panelists. Anybody jump in?
I could go. We've at Cameo, we've had a crazy growth year, especially since COVID. I just had my first in-person meeting with my whole company in 511 days, I think it was. since everybody was all together in one roof. At that time, we had 100 people. We now have 312, right? And last night I went to the opening dinner at Bump City, and I might have known and been able to recognize about 20% of the company, which is pretty crazy when you used to interview every single person. And one of the best pieces of advice I've gotten from my CEO coach is that there's 5 kind of forever OKRs as CEOs as you transition from being a founder to that's working in the business all the time to really like working on the business. And the 5 things that he always has, me focused on is number 1, product market fit. Find it, make sure that you keep it and then expand it, right? If you don't have product market fit, none of the other stuff matters. Number 2, build a world-class executive team. I've always talked about wanting to be the worst person on my team as quickly as possible. And, one of the ways that he's given me to help understand how am I tracking to that is he has me every quarter rank every member of my executive team from 1 to 5. 5 being like truly best in the world for the role, 4 being top 10% industry average, 3 being industry average, 2 being below industry average, 1 being like, why do they work for you? Every quarter, he makes me add them up, divide by the amount of people on my exec team. And the goal is to be 4.25 or higher. And if it's not, then I need to go shopping. I need to go find great talent. I need to go coach up some of the people I had. So last year, we went through a year where we hired COO, CFO, chief people officer, new head of products. I mean, we really made a lot of, big things. So that's number 2. Number 3 is communication and alignment. As you get bigger, you're not in the room with everyone. Everyone doesn't know why you're there. They don't know your mission, your vision, your values. So really making sure that you've dug that in and every employee, can have unaided recall of that because your values are how you work to get your mission and vision done. And if people don't know your values, then, how are they going to get work done the way you want? So really communication alignment is huge. Number 4 is employee engagement. Are your employees happy? Do they love what you're doing? Do they feel they're doing the best work of their lives? If you have product market fit, if you got great leaders they can learn from, if the values, mission, vision are all aligned with the way they want to work, they feel they're doing the best work of their lives. They'll tell their most talented friends to come work there. And then lastly, I think people conflate this. 5 is, make sure you have enough money to keep the lights on, right? To pay for everything. It's not the first most important. A lot of people think it's the first most important. It's the 5th. If you have 1, 2, 3, and 4, then 5 takes care of itself. And I think so often people, get really caught up in having, number 5 come before number 1. But if you have the first 4 things, 5 takes care of itself.
Stephen, well done, well done. I don't even have a follow-up question. That was so nice and right on. Other perspectives on practical advice on how to scale.
I don't know if I want to follow Steve's lead there, but I'll say a couple things. One, there are 4 different stages of a CEO. So there is a startup stage, there is a growth stage, there is a mature stage, and there's a mega stage. So think of growth stages like 0 to 50 employees. You generally know every single person. You're incredibly hands-on. Growth stage is probably 50 to 250, 300. You're still an operating CEO, but you're transitioning more to a strategic CEO. Then mature is, let's just say 250 to 1,000. You are very much a strategic CEO, and mega is your 1,000 plus, much more of a figurehead and kind of a visionary for the entire, organization. And the way you have to run the business in each one of those stages is completely different. So as you scale your business, you have to think about which stage are you at, because the way you're going to operate is going to be completely different. So that's the first thing I'll be thinking about is what stage is your business in, and making sure that you're running your CEO, you're running your business effectively in that area. The second thing is when you are just getting started or you are small, sales is everything. Mm-hmm. You have to have an ability to sell or market, and it doesn't have to be 80 things. In fact, I don't want it to be 80 things. It can be 2 to 3 great things. You go deep in those plays, you get better and better at those plays. And if you can drive leads and close leads, then you can figure out the product market fit and all the other stuff. If you can't sell or acquire customers, your business isn't going to go very far. So those will be kind of the two things: is think of the stage of your CEO and make sure you have a solid sales and marketing foundation to grow the business.
Love it. Awesome, John. Thank you very much. Caitlin or Duda?
Yeah, I think one of the themes you're hearing is just the level of change that's required from you and your team throughout the life cycle of the business. Like I still remember one of my advisors early on in the business told me that being an entrepreneur is one of the most downwardly mobile professions out there. And I think like what she meant by that, and I think it's really true for these high growth companies, is that if you're doing it right, at some point the business outgrows you, or it outgrows some of your team members. And so when I realized what she meant by that, I started thinking about like, okay, how do you make sure that you're scaling just as fast as the organization and the company is? And how does your team scale as fast as possible as well? And so it's really this long cycle of growth where you're constantly having to learn something new, which is something I personally really appreciate and love about being an entrepreneur. Not everyone loves that, that you're constantly kind of getting challenged and having to adapt and think about, okay, what is it the business needs from me right now at this point in time? So John talked about like in those early days, like what the business really needs from you at that point in time is to be a salesperson, and just to get the product out there and into customers' hands. And as you grow in the organization and the company grows, then those leadership skills become even more important, and being able to recruit and build a team become more important. So I think it's just that it's adapting and listening to feedback and responding and growing throughout the process.
That's awesome. Thank you, Caitlin. And Duda, do you want to chime in on this one?
I can add a few things here. I think some great points were covered, so I don't want to repeat that. I think the building of the leadership team, John, as you talked about, I think I have a very similar sort of a philosophy. There's growth phases, right? Where are you in the growth? And being very cognizant of what is required of the leadership. And Caitlin, to your point, like really around this concept of always changing, always growing, and being able to figure this out. One of the things while I haven't been in your shoes, but I've had very close proximity to high growth and getting product market fit. And let me talk about perhaps a slightly different angle, some of the pitfalls that I see happens over and over again. One of the things that I see happen is a lack of focus on what I call foundational things, right? Yes, in the beginning, you need to acquire a customer, but at the end of the day, you still have to, engage with those sets of customers who supported you in the initial pieces and not sort of leave them on the wayside. Now, that doesn't mean like as the product market fit evolves, some customers are not good and you have to let them go. But a lot of times I feel like the foundations of what it means to engage customers is sometimes lost in the spirit of growth. And that's something I always encourage people to go back to basics and say, are you talking to customers regularly? Are you talking to the folks who are saying negative things about you, whether it is on a G2 review site or they're emailing you on social media? And last but not the least, how are you actively creating a listening culture in your organization? There's a lot of hustle that goes on in all of this stuff. Without that hustle, one cannot be successful. But I think as important as it is to hustle, I think listening to what customers are saying and being able to reflect even on the negative stuff and improve really helps in the longer run in creating a sustainable business.
Love it. I love it. I love it that you brought up hustle. Everybody on this panel knows a lot about hustle for sure. And some great in there too. All right. We, as these things go, you guys are so great about having great answers that we're already getting closer to the audience Q&A. So I guess maybe a few minute warning to everybody get their questions in for the panel. But I'm going to actually ask some specific questions to each panelist now, and then we'll get to the audience Q&A. So we're going to start with Caitlin. Caitlin, your product was very unique in the marketplace when you first launched. But like any great product, it soon spawned a bunch of imitators. Definitely probably not as good, but folks trying to follow your lead. So how do you stay relevant and differentiated when your competition starts ramping up?
Yeah, I'd say first of all, I've loved that about this journey. If you set out to help change the food industry and then people start copying you, it means not just your customers are eating better, but their customers are eating better too. When we came into this industry, like sugar was the number one ingredient in most baking mixes, which today, 9 years later, is just crazy to think about. Like you wouldn't launch a product like that today. And so I am a firm believer that a rising tide raises all boats. This idea that you can help elevate consumer expectations and change what people expect out of their food, and that in turn drives change in the industry. And I really see our role as a company as doing that, as lifting the standards and continuing to push the limits of what people can get from their food. So, we started out in almond flour baking mixes, went into crackers, so more convenient form. But then since then, we've gone into alternative flours, like we've got these organic seed crackers that came out this year. We just this week launched some products that are made out of watermelon seed flour. And then increasingly, we're taking this focus on regenerative agriculture and partnering directly with farmers to employ regenerative techniques in growing crops and integrating those into our products, providing them with financial incentives and crop purchase guarantees to do so. Really with this idea of like, we can not only positively impact what people are eating, but also the impact that it has on the planet as well, and leave the planet in a better place than we found it. And so it's kind of like, okay, we can continue to push the limits here. And so it's keeping the team curious and not getting complacent with just like, oh, this is what we've always done. Yeah.
Love that. That's great. Thank you for sharing that. I mean, it really is fascinating to see 9 years that there was, 9 years ago, there was sugar in 90% or whatever of other bacon products. Crazy. Okay. So Duda, key part of your skill set is scaling. Can you share, and I think you've talked a little bit about this, but maybe share some more. Can you share some best practices on how to scale quickly without sacrificing your attention to the individual customer? And in other words, how do you act like a small company while becoming a big?
Yeah, I think this is like, I started by saying this a little bit, like engaging with customers in a personalized but scalable way is probably like a foundational thing all good startups do. I'll give a simple example of one of our customers. Every time somebody buys from their product, they send a thank you note, but they always personalize the note with the name of the founder. So that one is always automatic, right? However, if they reply back to that one, the second note is always a personal one. Now, chances are what ends up happening is most people actually don't, respond to every single message, but the ones that do get like a very personal engagement. And when that happens, it then leads to situations where you automatically want to talk about that in social media or something else. And that sort of generates like more halo around it, right? So that's one of the simplest ways I would say, figure out the balance between you want to keep it personal, but you actually don't want to give your email out to every single person to email you directly, right? So it's that little bit of this balance that you have to play. And the second thing I will say is, I think it's important to sort of really take a step back and look at the data, what your data is telling you. A lot of people are like, well, I don't have like a data team. I don't have this. Well, yes, like most companies don't have large data teams. In fact, I can comfortably say, I joined Google a little bit later. Google's data was like a hot mess. Is the best way I could put it. However, people still made data-driven decisions because it was a culture of sort of saying, what do I know? And what could I do differently with what I know? So I think that's a question we should all ask. If people are upgrading, why do they upgrade? And why aren't other people upgrading? What's the difference between both of them?
So I think that's the second thing I would really sort of encourage people to take the pause and then ask that question on a regular basis.
Love that. That is incredible advice, and crazy to hear that Google, circa 2012 had terrible data too. They'd been around for a bit, talked all about it, but not terribly surprising. But awesome. Thank you, Duda. All right, moving along, we're going to go to Stephen. Specific question for you. In a short amount of time, Cameo has grown to unicorn status, won a bunch of prestigious awards, garnered huge buzz in both the business world and popular culture at large. Amazing path. And very quickly, what does an entrepreneur do at this point? What are your goals and concerns and challenges at this level of your entrepreneurial journey? And you talked a bit about your CEO coach and all that. I mean, it seems like you're very thoughtful about this, but if you could share a bit, that would be great.
Yeah, I mean, look, I think just like any entrepreneur, I hope to build a Hall of Fame company, right? Like, you want to build something that matters. You want to build a product that your customers love, that that your employee, like a culture that your employees want to work at, that they feel that they're doing the most meaningful work of their lives. So for me, I think a good framework too that I like. Devin, my co-founder, always loves talking about this. As he said, in year one, Cameo was a top 0.0000001%, 1-year-old company. And then at year two, we were a top 1% company, and at year three and at year four. So, and obviously there's survivorship biases, right? Like, so many ventures fail in year one, it fails in year two, fails in year three. So the longer you're around to continue to be a top 1% company, it gets a lot harder, right? And for us, we hope that Cameo can be a publicly traded company one day. We think that it is a company that can continue to shape pop culture and continue to mature and really be at the forefront of helping talent monetize their socials and move to a direct-to-fan monetization scheme, as opposed to having all their money come from the record labels or the movie studios. With social, they have distribution, and we're right at the forefront of what people now call the creator economy. But Kevin, you can remember when we first pitched Cameo, and people were like, I don't know what the hell that thing is they're doing over there in 1871, or we probably shouldn't be able to do that in Chicago.
But you did, and you put us on the map for. I mean, really, there's a lot of great companies that come out of Chicago, but Cameo is definitely one of the most unique ones in the scale and the pace and all that. It's just been incredible. And for everyone on the call, Stephen, follow him on Twitter. He's a really good follow, and gives some great advice along the way too. So thanks for sharing that, Stephen.
We lost you, Kevin.
Oh, sorry.
We lost you, Kevin, here.
And then I muted myself. We're going to go to John, and then we'll go to audience Q&A, just because this has been so great, and we want to keep having a good Q&A with the panelists here. So John, you built one of the world's largest independent digital agencies, and you grew that company through a methodical process that you now teach to other companies looking to scale. What's the relationship between scaling and innovation, and what advice do you give young and old companies alike that are looking to ramp up innovation while achieving steady growth as a business?
Excellent question. The first thing is, after I sold Rise, I really could do anything. And, one of the reasons why I did this is part of this, we are 100% or vastly majority focused on Chicago. And if you think about the panelists here, we have 2 unicorn companies. Caitlin will hopefully be the next unicorn company. And the vast majority of the companies we're talking to are not. But we believe that we can add $1 billion in incremental revenue to the companies that work with us through the city of Chicago by really focusing more on the $1 million to $10 million companies and teaching them how to get to the next level. And a way to do that is through innovation. And I'm going to have everyone just think about one simple question real quickly. When someone asks you, how are you different? What do you say? Okay, and now I'm going to give you a follow-up question. I want you to imagine that 10 of your competitors said the exact same thing. And then you have to explain, how are you different than them? I'll give you a really good example. At Rise Interactive, our vision was to be the leaders at leveraging data to help brands make smarter marketing decisions. That is a long-winded way of saying we are data-driven. So if you take 49 other agencies and you put them right next to us, and you ask that same question, well, they all said that they're data-driven. How are you more data-driven? Well, the reality is that there's lots of different types of data. There's media data, customer data, consumer data, competitive data, inventory data, all sorts of data. And Rise built a proprietary technology with 69 different data sources focused on media data. And we could identify waste and reallocate that waste to areas that were more scalable and provide a better ROI than anybody else. And so the point is we could answer that second question. And so what we're doing with our customers is explaining that if you want to scale and you want to get to the next level, you know, I think Steve mentioned earlier, there's basically two things you need to do. You need to win customers and you need to keep customers. And the only way you're going to do that is through innovation. You have to have a superior product and service. And it's not necessarily where you are today, but it's the journey you go on to continually make that product better is what is absolutely crucial. And so basically, if you want to continually scale and you want to get to the next level, you have to be thinking about what is your differentiating factor. You have to invest in it. And so that hopefully gives a good point of view.
Awesome, John. Thank you very much. And love the energy and the enthusiasm around it. Okay. All right, we have about 10 minutes left, and I think I'm going to pass it to Paul to share some of the audience questions. Is that right?
Yeah, thanks, Kevin. This has been great, and no surprise, we have had a lot of questions come in. So we'll just see how many we can get to here in the next 10 minutes. And so I'll start with a question from Maureen Forsman, and she wants to know, a high percentage of startups fail. What are a couple key indicators of success early on that you can identify?
So I'll take that. The first indicator of success is, do you have a method to acquire customers? I mean, it's as simple as that. If you are not able to acquire customers, I don't care how good your product or service is, you're not going to be able to get to scale next level. The other thing that I'll look at is, from a financial management perspective, you really need a bottoms up budget where you know, not on an annual basis, but on a monthly basis, what your revenue needs to be and what your profit needs to be. And you need to be assessing each way every month, how are you doing against those goals? And if you're not achieving those goals, you have to assess why, and you got to pivot really, really quickly. Last component of that is you need to close your books really, really quickly every month, because you can't wait 60 days to find out how you did. You got to find out right away, this is what you wanted to do, this is what you actually did, and what's the difference, and reallocate accordingly.
Awesome, John. Paul, do you want to go to the next one, or do any other panelists want to respond to that first one? Let's go to the next one.
All right, we'll go to the next question here. So this is from Neural, and she's saying, bigger isn't always better. How do you decide if scaling up is worth it in terms of trade-offs and compromises?
I feel like bigger is rarely better. One of the things that I've learned going from 100 to 300 in a year is you don't go 3 times faster. Hopefully you don't go a third as quickly as you did before, right? Because with scale comes process. But that said, when you're attacking a really big market, one of the things you have to look at is, if somebody else were to deploy resources against it, could they capture market share if you don't go faster? Cameo wasn't the only company in the world working on what we did, but in our case, scaling up, hiring people that were recruiting the celebrities, it allowed us to, get way in front of anybody else on the list. And to this day, there's not really like a second place in our market, because we blitzscaled and nobody else did. So I think you have to look at the size of the market. You also have to understand, like, are you building a lifestyle business? Or are you building a business that requires external investment. If you're building a lifestyle business or a bootstrap business, I think John's advice is perfect, right? Like budget every month. If you're not able to make a sustainable profit, like pivot quickly and find something else. If you're building a business that you think you need outside investment or venture capital for, scaling is essential to build, fulfill the vision and mission that you have. So I think it just comes down to knowing what type of business you actually are as early as possible.
Awesome.
Great. And here's a quick one that everyone can quickly respond to. Michelle wants to know, what are you reading right now?
I am reading Working Backwards, which is all about Amazon and the successes they've had and some of the methodologies they've used that are a little bit different than other organizations.
I'm reading All We Can Save, which is, I'm going to read the subline, Truth, Courage, and Solutions for the Climate Crisis.
I'm reading Principles by Ray Dalio. It's a book that I've had for a long time, and I hadn't gotten around to reading it, and I just came back from Greece, had a 9-hour flight, so I cracked that one open. Good so far.
I'm reading a book called The Zeconomy, how to be successful in intergenerational work environments. And my motivation really was with the pandemic, everybody has gone like in this hybrid model, and it's just new territory. And I feel it's the best way to sort of take a step back and see what we can do for our amazing employees who are also trying to cope up with work.
Kevin, you're on vacation right now. What are you reading, any books?
I'm reading Endurance, which is about Shackleton's attempt to cross Antarctica a long time ago, and all that. I'm not too far into it, so if people have read it, don't ruin it for me. But it's been a great read so far.
All right, thanks everyone for sharing. So this next question is from Mahesh, and he is asking, at what period is it hardest to scale? 0 to 1 million, 1 to 10, or 10 to 100 million?
Oh gosh, all of them. All of them come with fault points. 0 to 1, you got to get it off the ground. You got to see if that product is going to stick. And then 1 to 10, it's figuring out how you're going to scale the team and figuring out how you're going to recruit and how you're going to scale leaders. And that transitions into some other stages. And then as you get larger, as Stephen's alluded to, it's really thinking about how do we scale our processes in ways that don't slow us down and ensure alignment across functions and making sure that people are getting communicated to effectively. And all those come with their own fault points that, not every business makes it to each stage.
Yeah, I would definitely agree with you. I think Stephen said something very important there. Like, as you're scaling up, you've taken funding, etc., then this has become this interesting balance of being scrappy, but you also kind of need some level of process, but then you also have to invest ahead and have this faith. So I think it's just so different across each one of those stages. And I think that's what probably makes some of this job really fun, but also very ambiguous and difficult at times.
And that's why you have to keep learning too. You talk to people in scaling businesses. The one, I thought what book are you reading question was great. And everybody had a book that they were reading, because to be able to, be in charge of a scaling business, you have to be a voracious reader. You have to be a learning machine. You have to be humble and accept that, there's a lot of shit that you don't know. And there's probably people that have been there, done that have solved exactly that thing. So I think like kind of the more you scale, the humbler you should hopefully get, because, the answer I was going to give is 100 million to $1 billion is probably the hardest of all those, because it just keeps getting harder every level of the game.
Yeah.
I would also say different leaders are better at different stages. Yeah. So, I have a bunch of clients, they were able to scale to $5 million, and then they've been at 5 million for a few years, and they don't know how to get from 5 million to 10 million. And so I've had other, and oftentimes the way that you have to manage, where you now have to trust your leaders and have them do their jobs, as opposed to you doing everything yourself, that's oftentimes really hard for people. Other people are really good at that. So it really, what I would say is every stage has a different set of challenges, as Caitlin said. And it's really up to the leader to know what those are and determine what their strengths and weaknesses are at those stages.
Love it. I love it. Paul, do we have time for one more, or should we pass it off to Luke to wrap us up? This has been such a great conversation.
No, I don't want to be the one, Kevin, to say no, we don't. So how about we'll do one more, and if we could, address this quickly in the next minute or so. So that's my challenge to you guys. And the question is, it's from Tom Moorhead, and he's asking, how do you reset your culture to reflect post-COVID and the new demands of the new off-site workplace?
Great question.
None of us answered. I'll take a crack at it. I think in this post-COVID world, you have to recognize that the demands of your employee workforce is different. And if you are using data and doing employee engagement surveys on a frequent basis, you can gather data to figure out what is important to them. Flexibility and the ability to work at home and have the ability to come into the office, I think is more imperative and more important. I think to be able to hire potentially in different locations than where you've all potentially hired before is another opportunity. And so I think that there isn't going to be a one size fit all answer. I think it's going to recognize that there's been a shift in importance, and you have to figure out for your specific company and your specific culture and your needs, what is the right formula of in-person versus hybrid.
Yeah, I think John nailed it. And, it's funny, me and my chief people officer, we're discussing this today. Cameo has no offices anywhere. Everybody's fully work from anywhere. And we talked about what's the difference between work from anywhere and work from home. And, one thing that Mel, my chief people officer, talked about today was that we're not going to have a cookie cutter approach. Like work from anywhere means different things to different people. Some will always work from home. Some might be splitting their time between multiple cities. Some may want to go work out of a Soho house or out of a co-working all the time. Some people want offices, and I think John nailed it on keeping track of your employees. What do they want? I just did an employee benefit survey, and 82% said they never want to go back to an office, right? So we're not going to get an office. And then when you make the decision, you go that way, you start attracting people that want to work at a work from anywhere company. And there's other people that are definitely going to want to go back to office. And maybe your company could have been perfect for them when you had offices, and the culture and the mission, vision, values are all things they like. But if they want to be in an office and you're not going to have one, like eventually you start skewing that way. So I think it's really important to know what you want to accomplish, to understand, can you get work done that way? Understand there's trade-offs with both approaches, and, be fine, with some of the downfalls, as long as you think the benefits are, outweigh the negatives.
Well, I think, Caitlin, go ahead.
Yeah, I was just going to say, one of the things that, because we've done a fair amount of research on this, one of the things that's really interesting when you ask people about the times when they feel most connected to the company that they're a part of, the stories that they bring up typically center around, I was walking into the office, I was having lunch with someone. And so you think about we think about shifting the purpose of an office to not be about the getting work done, or we expect you to be at your desk, but instead these intentional opportunities to convene people in ways that help them feel connected to our company and culture. And so I think the purpose of the office is different than what it is in the past. And that's kind of how we're looking at it, is it's like we meet people where they are, we support them with what they would like to do in terms of like their balance of working from home, but then at the same time provide resources to be able to get people together in an intentional way.
And I think that is, to give you the last word, Caitlin, I think that was a great way to wrap it up. It's going to be an interesting back half to 2021 here and into 22. So this has been a great panel. Thank you all for being a part of it. I'm going to turn it back to Luke.
Great. Thank you, Kevin, and thank you for doing a terrific job leading today's session. And Stephen, Caitlin, John, and Duta, you are an outstanding group of speakers today. There was someone who sent me a private message recently calling this a Cliff Notes for a master's course in startups. And I could not agree more, though I would say it's a PhD level course in startups today, because everything you said was absolutely fantastic. So I want to thank our wonderful panelists again for being here, for the companies you've built, the opportunities that you've brought to so many people, the extra shine that you've put on Chicago, and for really sharing all your pearls of wisdom with our audience today. And then lastly, I want to thank our audience for tuning in, being such a great, important part of Chicago Innovation's 20th anniversary year. We have some more great events planned, including our return to in-person programming. I don't know what that number, Stephen, was. It was like 500 and something, but it's been that many days since we've been together for an in-person event. And our next one is August 5th. It's our in-gala fundraiser at Ignite Glass Studios. And one final last plug, this Friday, July 30th, is the deadline to nominate for a Chicago Innovation Award. All of the speakers here have won Chicago Innovation Awards. And I know there's many great other companies in the audience. So if you are scaling, this Friday is the deadline. And until we see you next, have a great summer and take care.